Okay, good afternoon. If I could ask you to take your seats, we'll get started. I'll start by calling the meeting to order, and I'll walk through the process before we get started, so bear with us for a few minutes with the housekeeping items. I call the order of the December 14th, 2023 Subdivision and Appeal Board hearing. My name is Andre Gianandrea, and I will be the chair for this hearing. All comments and questions should be directed through the chair. At this time, I'll have the board members introduce themselves, starting to my right, please.
Board member Karen Mara.
John McClure. My name is Christoph Breyer.
And will our admin staff please introduce themselves as well?
Cheryl Hyde, municipal clerk, also SDAB clerk.
Sarah Jones, SDAB clerk.
Lauren Miller, Manager of Planning and Development.
Harry Schneider, Senior Development Planner.
Thank you. To the board and administration, are there any additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda? None at this time. I move that the board approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. Approval of the previous meetings to the board members. Are there any additions, deletions, or changes to the minutes for the September 7th, 2023 appeal hearing? Nope. I approve. Sorry, go ahead.
There's a little spelling error on top of the minutes. It should say either 2:30 or 2. It shows both. So it should say 2:30, please.
In that case, do we need a motion for that amendment, or can I move to?
You can ask for approval of the minutes, right? You can ask for approval of the minutes with the amendment.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll record it.
Okay. I move that the board approve the minutes of the September 7th, 2023 hearing as amended. All those in favor? Motion carried and announced. Today, the board will hear an appeal by the applicant of a decision by the Development Authority to refuse development of permit application PL 2023-0189 for a change of use at 200-130 Bow Meadows Crescent, other way around, to employee housing in the General Industrial District. Will the applicant please approach the podium and introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, board members, administration, and members of the public. My name is Jill Hofer, and I'm the applicant speaking on behalf of the application today. I'm a senior planner with McElhaney Canmore.
Thank you. Do you have any objection to any of the board members present hearing this appeal?
No.
Okay, thank you. And to the audience, does anyone in the audience affected by this appeal object to any of the board members present hearing this appeal? No objections noted. I will outline the process for the hearing, and then we'll get going. You can take a seat again, please. There are some slight differences between this process and the one that was circulated to accommodate greater participation, so we'll explain that at this time. The hearing process is as follows. First, the development officer will make their presentation, followed by an opportunity for the board to ask questions. Once the development officer is done doing that, the applicant will speak to their appeal, followed by an opportunity for the board members to ask questions for clarification. We invite those in the audience speaking in favor of the appeal to approach the podium, followed by those speaking in opposition, and finally those speaking neither in favor nor in opposition. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, just getting a lot of glazed looks, so making sure. After all the verbal submissions have been received, I will ask the clerk to read the names of those who provided those written submissions, identifying those in favor, those opposed, and those neither in favor nor opposed. After all presentations, we may call a short recess. After reconvening, there'll be an opportunity for board members to ask questions for clarification again. Any person who has presented will then be given an opportunity to ask questions for clarification through the chair of other persons who have presented. An opportunity for closing comments will follow, first from administration, then from the applicant, and finally from any other party who has presented. I will then ask those who presented if they feel they had a fair hearing. Lastly, I'll conclude the hearing. The board will meet in a closed session to review the evidence and provide a written decision within 15 days. To the applicant, do you have any concerns with the process that has been outlined? So, do you have any concerns with the process as outlined? Okay, thank you. Does anyone in the audience have any concerns with the process as outlined? Thank you. Will the development officer please proceed with your presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Good afternoon. Once again, my name is Harry Schneider. I'm a senior development planner with the town. I was the development authority for this application. The application is located at 130 Bow Meadows Crescent, and it was to propose a change of use for one employee housing unit within a multi-tenant industrial building that is existing. The proposed unit, the board will see the floor plan later in the presentation, but it was for a 2-bedroom plus den suite on the second floor. The application was considered from late June 2023, and it was refused on the 30th of October 2023. This is a overhead aerial of the area. The subject building is outlined in red. There are a number of surrounding businesses. There's a paint shop and a tour operator to the north, car wash and contractor to the east, and there are multi-tenant buildings to the west and the south. And just to better orient the board, this is near the north intersection of Bow Meadows Crescent and Elk Run Boulevard. These are two views of the building. The top picture is of the building, which also has the entrance to the unit in question, which is located on the second floor. The second photo is of almost shows the cross section of the building, where there is an existing driveway that slopes down to a number of lower level bays. And there is a middle level and then the upper level, which you can see on top. So the only level on the second floor is that of the unit that we're here to speak of this afternoon. Now, to give a policy background to the board, there are goals that the municipal development plan has with respect to industrial activity within the community, and how the municipal development plan wants to see industrial areas protected for and to remain as industrial uses. So policy 12.1.3 says they'll be protected from adjacent uses that could impact on the continued operation of industrial uses. This may include strategies such as buffering with open spaces or a gradual transition from industrial to commercial to residential uses. The staff report also speaks to the difficulty that the town has had in regulating employee housing once a development is occupied, and it also notes that there is a scarcity of industrial land within the town limits for industries and operations that couldn't locate elsewhere. So protection of the Elk Run Industrial Park is something that's of paramount importance to administration. However, the MDP does provide a 4-part test within Policy 12.1.8 that would consider residential development within an industrial area, and I'll just go through that for the board's edification. Subsection A is that residential uses are limited to housing for employees. And this is where the town has historically run into issues and has concerns that we're regulating users and not uses. It could be used as an individual regardless of their employment status, but this really isn't something that the town will involve themselves with. There's a lack of enforcement program systems that the developer might implement in perpetuity. And so there's no way that basically once a unit is created, and especially once it's created into a condominium, there's very little that the town can do to monitor things on an ongoing basis other than receiving a development application. Subsection B speaks to impacts from industrial uses being sufficiently small to make residential uses appropriate, and subsection C, residential uses will not displace or inhibit the operation of existing or future industrial uses. So once again, we're looking at a building that's pretty well in the south central part of the industrial park. There are a number of different industrial activities. Some are some could be considered intrusive. Others could be considered a little less intrusive. But the point here is that there's a whole mix of uses that are allowed and that are continuing to operate within the park. The fluidity of looking at approvals, it makes it hard to establish design thresholds for buildings. So buildings are basically designed in this area to meet the Alberta Building Code, and to look at something that's additional to it means additional work has to be done within a specific part of the building, unless that particular use is contemplated right from the beginning. There is noise, there is outdoor storage. These are activities that do go on in this area, and this is the area where they should happen within this industrial park. So permitting further housing at this location does pose a risk and potentially jeopardizes continued industrial operations or new industrial operations to locate here. The final subsection within the policy is subsection D, which is residential units are subordinate to the industrial uses. And in this case, yes, one unit within a 6-unit multi-tenant industrial building, I would say, is subordinate to the use. However, if the board is counting up what administration is thinking on this policy, 1 out of 4 doesn't mean that it's passed the test, it's failed the test that the MDP has set out. You have to look at all 4 policies written at once in order to consider MDP compliance. There are a couple of more relevant MDP policies with respect to housing. Affordable housing goal number 4 is to cooperate with local businesses and the construction and development industry to find innovative solutions to provide affordable housing for employees. And then policy 5.4 is to provide initiatives that create additional seasonal and permanent employee housing opportunities should be supported by the town. In our opinion, this proposal doesn't meet that innovation test. However, we have been, council has tasked us to look at possibilities with the new housing program that's on its way. Within the industrial park, it is also subject to the policies of an area structure plan, which was Indian Flats. Indian Flats ASP dates back to 1994, and it provided a framework for lands within this part of the community when the lands were annexed into Canmore in 91 from the MD. There is no specific policy for housing within the ASP. The inclusion of employee housing could have been a response to the policy framework already discussed within the municipal development plan. Now, moving to the land use bylaw, this is the land use bylaw map up on the screen now. And as you can see, it's within the general industrial IND2 district. Oops, my apologies. There we go. That's a heck of a map, you know. So basically, once you get south of the Alpine Meadows development, anything east of on the east side of Elk Run Boulevard is general industrial IND2, and properties along the west side of Elk Run are light industrial IND1. This is a cross-section of the existing building. If you think back to the picture that was presented earlier in the presentation, there are six units within this building, and Unit 200 is marked as legally marked as Unit 1 within the condominium. So you can see how the building is split up. This is the floor plan that was submitted with the application, basically for a two-bedroom dwelling unit with a den, with the kitchen. There are 2 bathrooms that are proposed for each of the bedrooms, and there is a small deck that is built into the roof. So there is an actual amenity space within the unit as well. Now, in considering the land use bylaw, this section, which is on the screen, 11003, provides a framework for the development authority to consider an application for a discretionary use. And in looking at it, there are issues which really echo the MDP discussion earlier with respect to plans and policies that affect the parcel and the location of the parcel and the appropriateness of the proposed development. If we consider again the appropriateness, I'm not going to go into great detail here because I've already spoken to it, but the bylaws that govern community standards do allow for a longer period of sound decibels. There's a greater tolerance for outdoor storage, and there's the possibility for more exposure to noise and other industrial activities. In considering a discretionary use against the council strategic plan, council is concerned with livability and with the opportunity for affordability as well. And we're in looking at this as a discretionary use. This is something that we have to continue to consider. And you know, this is not a residential area. This is not a commercial area. This is an industrial area, and livability doesn't necessarily equal the opportunity to live somewhere. We do want people to live in appropriate places, surrounded by things that they can use on a daily basis. Excuse me.
Surrounded by what? Surrounded by what?
Amenities, sir?
Amenities?
Yes.
no management upgrade.
Okay. The IND2 district does have a number of regulations that need to be adhered to as well, and they really echo the policy 12.1.8. I won't read out the entire section verbatim. However, in our opinion, there are issues with this proposal, in particular for subsection A, which is the ability to make sure that there's long-term binding provisions on the unit that are enforceable. That it could not otherwise be used for commercial or industrial purposes. That it's appropriate in that it wouldn't constrain future industrial activities, and that it wouldn't unduly interfere with existing industrial operations. So, as a summary, in considering what I've spoken to over the last few minutes, the development application was refused for noncompliance with the MDP policy 12.1.8 and the LUB sections 1.10.0.3 and 5.3.6.1. Now, in the preparation of the staff report and in looking a little bit closer at the property, I did have some questions for the applicant, and the applicant, which was basically surrounding, what is in there right now. There appears to be an office, but I'm not sure if there's an office. There's no advertising or there's no signage out in front. And the applicant did indicate verbally to me that there is actually an existing apartment unit within that space, and there was some further information that was provided. This is basically being presented for the board's knowledge, and I appreciate Ms. Hofer, providing us with that information. But it really, at this point, it wasn't substantial enough that it would change the tenor of the staff report. That despite that there being a unit in there, it doesn't change that we still have the policy objections to within the MDP and within the land use bylaw. So that's the staff presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions that the board may have.
Any of the board members have questions for clarification of the development officer at this time?
I have two questions. If you can please go back to these picture of the building, the one slide, there were two pictures on that building. Yeah, this one. Does this picture, these two pictures, show the same building?
Yes, they do, sir.
I do not see a garage door on the lower
okay.
picture.
So I'm sorry.
So
one was of a picture that I found of the internet, but yes, they are the same building. There was a change of use application that was put in, and subsequent. The bottom photo must have been what was an earlier photo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So the upper photo is a more current picture?
The upper photo was taken about 3 weeks ago.
Okay, perfect. That was my first question. And second question is, looking at these pictures, I see 5 windows on the second level, plus these 2 square windows, left and right. Looking at the existing floor plan, I do not see 5 windows. And looking at the proposed floor plan, I do not see 5 windows either. So which one is correct?
I would say that what's here today is what you see, and what's on the floor plan, and that would be subject to a further building permit application if the application were to advance, that they would have to provide more detailed fit-up drawings at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board for development?
Yeah, I have a question. So in section 5.3.6.1 of the land use bylaw, subparagraph A says, one of the requirements is that there be adequate long-term and legally binding provisions in place to ensure the units remain as bona fide employee housing units. What kind of legally binding provisions might that include, or what is that referring to?
This is the challenge that administration have faced in looking at these types of applications. You know, and I'll give my own example here, where I used to live in Whiskey Jack, which is on Kananaskis Way, and that's in an area that's districted employee housing. And there was my landlord at the time told me that there was a restrictive covenant in place that said that this unit was only supposed to be rented to people who were employed within the Bow Valley. The restrictive covenant echoed the land use bylaw definition of employee, and that's fine. You know, I wasn't her employee, but I was an employee. But if someone chose to, and with a condominium corporation, or simply they chose to have the ability to discharge that restrictive covenant, that would be done without the town's knowledge. And restrictive covenants are enforced as civil matters. They're not enforced as a matter of the town coming in and issuing a stop order. And again, it's that regulating the user, not the use. And that's something that a municipality really doesn't do.
So when the town enacted this regulation and provided that there must be adequate long-term and legally binding provisions to ensure the property remained bona fide employee housing, what do you think they were what was council referring to? Like what could this applicant do that might, or any applicant for that matter, what could they do to satisfy that requirement?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to defer this question to Ms. Miller.
Thank you,
Ms.
Harry.
Miller?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Historically, the town had been using restrictive covenants to try to achieve the section in 5.3.6.1.a. However, as the town has grown and have had more concerns raised about what's happening within these units and the town's ability to enforce those restrictive covenants, it has become apparent that that's not the most effective legal instrument in order to achieve some of the or address some of the concerns that we've received. And so administratively, we are looking at that section and exploring what exactly is the best legal instrument, because the one that we have been relying on historically has proved to be cumbersome and almost ineffective in our ability to enforce. So to your question, the answer is restrictive covenants, but we've learned that there are some challenges associated with using that particular legal instrument with what we're trying to achieve here.
Thank you for that, Ms. Miller.
So just to clarify, the law requires that there be a long-term and legally binding provision. The town's position is that historically that would have been a restrictive covenant. But the town's position now is that restrictive covenants are not the mechanism to do that. So is the conclusion that there is no mechanism?
That is what administration is currently exploring, is to understand, is there a legal instrument that can achieve what the intent of these regulations? But to maybe, I think where you're maybe going, is that the applicant or the property owner can still put these restrictive covenants on title. It's just when issues come up, the tenants typically look to the town to enforce. They're looking to the town to remediate or remedy the situation, but the restrictive covenants aren't necessarily where the town is a party to it. So we're not really best positioned to address the concerns that the community is coming to us with. So, like I said, we are currently exploring how can we approach this matter differently in order to address the actual concerns that are being raised within the community, because they're typically not associated to the people living in the unit, but to behaviors or activities that are happening within a unit. So it's noise, parties, things of that nature that even a restrictive covenant wouldn't address. It's not about who's living there, it's kind of what's happening there.
Thank you.
And just finally, is there a restrictive covenant registered on the title?
I'm not, to be honest, I'm not sure.
Okay.
We'd maybe ask for the applicant to speak to that in their presentation.
Thank you.
Anything else for Mr. Schneider from the board at this time? No. Thank you, Mr. Schneider. The applicant may make your presentation at this time, Ms. Hofer. Am I pronouncing that right, Hofer? Thank you. I pronounce my name a lot, so I understand.
Good afternoon. Again, everyone, thank you to Mr. Snyder for presenting on behalf of administration. So as I previously mentioned, my name is Jill Hofer. I'm with McElhaney Canmore. I'm a senior planner working in the Bow Valley. The site, as previously mentioned, is located at 130 Bow Meadows Crescent, located in southeast Canmore near Elk Run Boulevard north of Bow Valley Trail, Highway 1A. The proposal is to bring into conformity an existing 178 square meter employee housing unit on the upper floor of the existing building. As Mr. Snyder previously demonstrated, there are currently 3 tenants living in the unit at this address. They all do currently have a employee housing tenant agreement in place with the owner of the building. The total gross floor area of the building is 938.35 meters square. The employee housing unit represents less than 20% of the gross floor area, making the suite accessory to all of the other industrial uses on site. Existing tenants that are considered industrial or non-residential include a cleaning business, the Carter Ryan Gallery Warehouse, and the lower level was previously utilized by a catering company. However, that company has since moved out of that space and it is currently being used as storage. This is the floor plan for the employee housing unit. As previously noted, there are 2 bedrooms within the unit, 3 bathrooms, a kitchen, a den, a living area, and outdoor amenity space or a patio area. So the total floor area is 1,900 square feet of space. This slide is intended to show ease of access for tenants of this unit to nearby parks and hiking trails, municipal skating rinks, food and beverage services, bus routes, and multi-use trail connections on Elk Run Boulevard. This slide goes further into detail on the nearby amenities that are located within close proximity or within less than a 10-minute walk from the existing suite on the site. So some additional amenities within close proximity to the site include easy access to the Rome bus within 1-minute walk, local daycare within a 4-minute bike ride or 10-minute walk, nearby groceries within a 1-minute walk, eating and drinking establishments including wildlife and sheepdog, within 3-minute walk from the site, and many hiking, biking, and multi-purpose trails within a 4-minute walk of the suite, and a dog park nearby. There is also a new sidewalk that's been approved to be installed just immediately adjacent to the site to improve pedestrian access from Bow Meadows Crescent to Elk Run Boulevard. And so that sidewalk was made or is required as part of the employee housing unit that's been approved at 121 Bow Meadows Crescent. The Indian Flats Area Structure Plan expands upon the direction provided by the Canmore MDP, which encourages the broadening of the employment and economic base of the community and promotes the development of clean, light industrial uses which are sensitive to the surrounding environment. Because the plan envisions clean industrial or industrial business uses in the plan area, it follows that there would be no conflicts with limited employee housing within this district. The typical service center uses which support the tourism industry in the Bow Valley do not include noxious uses which are incompatible with residential uses. The use of limited sites in the area for employee housing supports the goals and objectives of supporting the tourist trades described within this ARP or ASP. The ASP also provides clear direction that the area be developed with high-quality, clean industrial uses which do not conflict with minimal employee housing. So those policies are laying out the framework for there to be residential uses developed within this area. So further, the land use district identifies, or the land use bylaw identifies this district as general industrial district, and employee housing is considered a discretionary use. Our clients purchased this property with the understanding that this is a discretionary use within this district and that the existing suite may be considered may be considered through the development permitting process. So the proposed unit on site does meet the regulations of the employee housing provisions provided for within the land use bylaw. And there are additional regulations that Mr. Snyder spoke to that are currently listed within the land use bylaw to provide some more certainty surrounding tenants within the building so that they are utilized by employees of the community. The Canmore Municipal Development Plan also does support the development of employee housing units in industrial areas through the following policies. So Section 5.3.1 includes conversion of spaces in the upper floors of existing buildings in industrial areas which are marginally useful for industrial purposes into housing for employees, and live-work spaces may be allowed. The development or conversion of upper floors of mixed-use or commercial buildings or main floor spaces that do not function well for commercial frontage into housing for employees and live workspaces may also be allowed as per the MDP. And lastly, private initiatives to create additional seasonal and permanent employee housing opportunities should be considered by the town, is another policy contained within the MDP. Further, the proposal is supported by the council's strategic plan, which includes the following statement: the provisions of affordable and accessible services is vital to our community. This includes a commitment to a range of underserved housing options. And also, it aligns with Pillar 3 of the Canmore Economic Strategy, which states that retaining and attracting a talented workforce is completed by ensuring access for all to housing and quality amenities and facilities. So in conclusion, the owners of the building have reached out to nearby tenants and owners, business owners, and they have received 4 letters in support of their application since the time that this presentation was prepared. A 5th letter has been received by the neighbor directly adjacent to the property. One item of note is that it is our client's understanding that there have been tenants living in this area since the building's construction back in 2000, and there haven't been complaints from any tenants that we're aware of within the immediate area for those or surrounding the existing residential unit on the site. The site context, applicable statutory plans and current land use district and the existing developments near the site indicate that the proposed development is suitable for the site. And the development also meets the intent of the area structure plan, and this combined with the list of permitted and discretionary uses in the land use bylaw indicate the suitability of the development for the site. And lastly, the municipal government provides provisions for which development permits should be considered. And so those items include the purpose is to achieve the orderly, economical, and beneficial development, use of land, and patterns of human settlement, and to maintain and improve the quality of the physical environment within which patterns of human settlement are situated in Alberta without infringing on the rights of individuals or the public interest, except where necessary for the overall greater public interest. And that concludes my presentation for today. I'm available to answer questions.
Great. Thank you. Do any of the board members have any questions for Ms. Hofer? Christoph?
Thanks for your presentation. My first question is, you said your client purchased this property recently, or how long ago?
Yes. Thank you for the question through the chair. So the property was purchased in 2022.
Yeah, June 2022.
Can you say it again?
June 2022.
And with that purchase, you're saying there was an existing unit, residential unit in that building on that second floor?
Through the chair, that's correct. So it was purchased with a unit already, an occupied unit in place. And through the purchase of the building, the owners are now looking to legalize and to develop that legally on the site, the suite.
Okay, and since June 2022, have there been any changes in the residential occupants? Basically, the question is, have there been new leases being assigned to new renters?
Yeah, so when we purchased the unit in 2022, the previous owner wanted to maintain the unit occupied with the existing tenant at that time. That came up in June of 2023, at which time I had applied for the staff housing prior to that. The intent was to have the staff housing in place before occupying. Local businesses reached out to me. One of them is here. Explain the situation, but you know, there were some people without homes and they needed a place to stay, to live and work in the community, and so I made the judgment call to support that action. Yeah, and so just to your previous question about the layout, I just contracted Rob Finley, the architect, local architect, to map out the unit as it was when we purchased it. So there's been the difference between the windows and whatnot, it should be the same. It was just asked the architect to map out the unit as it was when we purchased it. So if that makes sense.
Okay,
Yeah.
so a new lease has assigned since then to a new tenant?
There's no lease. There's employee tenancy agreements. So I went to a Welsh law firm, a local law firm, and asked them to draft up an employee tenancy agreement that ties living there to being employed in town. So I passed that tenancy agreement on to Amanda with Take a Hike Market. They utilize that for their 2 employees that are living there, and I have 1 employee, a local business that I have there that has an employee tenancy agreement. So their ability to live there is connected to their working in the community. And the overarching intent would be to provide people an opportunity to get in, get settled, and then eventually find their own place so that they have time to find their own accommodation. Because new people come into town, it's very difficult for them to find a place to live, especially working in you know, back of the house, kitchen staff or servers, whatnot. It's difficult to find employee in housing at all. So this enables them an opportunity to get in, get secure in their jobs, and have time to find appropriate accommodation elsewhere. So,
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
Thank you for that. One moment, please. First, for records, if we could ask you to state your name for...
Oh, sure. It's Derek Johnson.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Cheryl, did you get that?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
And to your question about the covenants, I would be happy to put a legal covenants in place if that's what's required. So I'd be happy to provide the tenancy agreements to the town if that's what's required to meet their, I guess, test of whether it's being used for employee housing or not. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Through your answers, you've answered my questions. So any other board members have questions for the applicant at this time?
Yeah, I just have one question. So the tenancy agreement, those are, each individual has a separate, and what's the term of that?
The term, like,
How long?
It's tied to their employment in the case. So in the case of Amanda's employees that are working there, it's tied to them. Sorry. It's tied to their employment at their place of employment in the Bow Valley. So in the case of Amanda's employees, their tenancy is limited to their term as an employee at Take a Hike Market in this case. Yeah.
So just so I'm clear, if the individual ceases to be employed,
Yes.
then they're not allowed to live in the,
There's a certain timeline, like, yeah, within a grace period, and to
Yeah.
enable them to, we wouldn't want to put somebody out in the street the next day if they cease to be employed. But there's a limited time window. I don't know the date. I think it's
Yeah.
maybe 30 days or something like that. Yeah,
okay, thank you.
yeah.
Any further questions from the board for the applicant at this time? Okay, thank you. Please be seated. At this time, we'll invite anyone from the audience who wishes to speak in support of the appeal. If you do speak, and if you do choose to do so, please approach the podium and provide your full name before speaking for the record. Please approach.
This is my first time doing anything like this, so if I miss any formalities or buttons, you let me know. Hi, my name is Amanda Winston. I am one of the founders and owners of Take a Hike Market. My husband and I opened up in October of last year, so we've been in operation for 1 year. And along with many other business owners, smaller businesses, new businesses, finding stability with and for employees is very difficult in the Bow Valley. Affordable housing is quite tricky, and we have 2 employees currently in this staff accommodation. The first employee was a bit of a desperate situation. They were living out of their car. We were concerned for their safety. We were concerned for their mental health. If you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs and what's really important to people in the foundation, it's a safe place to be, food on your plate. That's what helps provide stability for individuals. So this individual was living out of their car. They'd been working with us since day one, and so they were as long-term as you can be when you've been open for a year, a long-term, full-time employee with us. And at Take a Hike Market, our employees are everything. They're not numbers, they're individuals, and we go out of our way to take care of people to the best of our abilities. So when this opportunity arose to potentially put this person into staff accommodation so that person could feel safe, that person could feel stable, like they felt like they could come to work and do their best, that was facilitated through putting them in the staff accommodation. We have another employee who's been in there for a few months now, and this individual had lived in the Bow Valley before and had struggled with stability of employment and stability of housing as well. Our executive chef had worked with them in the past and knew that they had a skill set that was going to be super valuable and important to Take a Hike Market. What we do is not what most restaurants in town do. Pretty much all of our food on the menu is created from scratch. It's not from frozen. So when it comes to our kitchen and back of house employees, there is a skill set beyond, reheating and combining that is needed and required to be able to maintain the level of awesome that you get from our menu. So again, this employee had previously worked with our executive chef. They'd moved out of the Bow Valley, and the only way we were able to get them back to work with us was with the promise of, well, not the promise, but the opportunity of staff accommodation. When it comes to the mental health of people in the Bow Valley, you need those foundational core things to be in place, such as housing and employment and support, in order for them to be able to not only stay, but to thrive and develop long-term and to contribute back to our communities, contribute back to our economy. A lot of weight is placed on the shoulders of small business owners, and we do our best to support financially and in other ways, emotionally as well. So in providing an approval, hopefully, for this request, you're not necessarily just helping businesses, you're helping people. You're helping people who want to be here. This one person, the one who was living out of his car, has been in the Bow Valley for more than 20 years. This is his home, and he's tried very, very, very hard. And it's through this arrangement that he's able to provide or to have stability for himself and to build himself up as well. So I know, there's a lot going on around the conversation with affordable housing and staff housing and things like this. And there's more work to come in partnership between the town and interested stakeholders as well. But in this particular scenario, there are human beings who are contributing to everything that's important in the Bow Valley, the economy, the people, the community, and the care. And this is the best way to keep them here and to let them know that they're important and valued as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in support of the appeal? Please approach the podium and provide your name.
My name is Cy Johnson. I've been the resident of Canmore since about 1994, and bought our property on First Street for $500, so we now enjoy a lovely home. Now, not everybody has that, as we all know. I've also been a member of the Canmore Rotary Club for 20 years, and during that period, we have raised over $3 million to help those in need in our community. And so I just want to say that providing some assistance to those, like those employees that need accommodation, I think it's very important to support that. It'll not only be good for the employees, good for the community, and so I would highly recommend that we move forward and approve this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Anyone else that would like to speak in support of the appeal, please approach the podium and provide your full name. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak against the appeal? At this time, please approach the podium and provide your full name. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in a neutral position? If so, please approach the podium and provide your full name.
Good afternoon, Board and Administration. My name is Roland Godbout. I own and operate a business in one of the areas that are very close in Bow Meadows Landing. I have a company called Competition Concrete. We've been here in the valley since 1997. We employ approximately 22 employees. Right now, out of our 22 employees, myself and one employee live in the valley. It has been a struggle, as we all know. One thing that I am concerned and applaud at the same time is council and administration looking at ways to try and support our struggles that we have bringing employees into the valley. Also, I have concerns about how we do that and how we administrate it, and they talk about restricted covenants. And unfortunately, the town of Canmore, we do not have pillow police. And at some point, we're going to need to have some pillow police. I am also the past president of Bow Meadows Landing, which I think everybody knows where the sheepdog and the distillery is in there. I've been the past president for 9 years. Right now, I'm sit as the vice president. We do have some unapproved residential accommodations that are in our complexes that have been somewhat of a struggle for us. Parking, applications between businesses and residentials, how they meet and they collide. I hope that somewhere in these appeals that we're able to find a balance that what is needed for businesses and residents in our area to thrive. At the same time, I'm concerned as being a business owner and owning property in the area, how that long-term effect will have on us. Right now, we are in a residential struggle or accommodation struggle. That doesn't mean that we're always going to be in that. My background is as much concrete, but I built and developed apartments and still own over 200 suites of apartments in Saskatoon, so I understand the rental business very well. Been in it when I say my entire life. My dad started building apartments in the 1960s. I cleaned them as kids and built them as teenagers and managed them and ran them as an adult. So I understand the rental facet of communities. So as a board, I guess I wonder how we're going to be able to find this balance that we need as a business. I don't want it to affect businesses to operate, because that's our main function is running a business, but then we need to look after our employees. We have staff employee housing in Cochrane that we purchased, move employees back and forth. One concern that I have when people are buying property and wanting to turn it into staff accom, is it turning it into staff accom, or is it turning into a revenue stream for them? If it's a revenue stream for you able to purchase this property, then the intent of the staff accom is not there, in my opinion. That's what I'd like to add to the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in a neutral position? If so, please approach the podium and provide your full name.
I don't know if I missed my opportunity for speak. I guess I'm speaking for, but
No, please go.
yeah, sure. I'm speaking obviously for the application, but I just wanted to give context, and thanks to everyone that stood up and speak. So, I mean, as you heard, as you're aware, there are suites in the area that are illegally used. When we purchased it, I've read the land use bylaw. I understood that it could be converted to staff accom. I didn't realize there'd be this challenges coming, you know, in the process to do so. But I still followed the process and was open and transparent about the previous and current use and doing whatever it can in my abilities to meet the requirements and to meet the objectives, and in doing so, there's a human element that came into the fact that maybe made me step ahead of the waiting for the approval process, but I apologize for that if I disrupted the process by doing so. But yeah, all my intent was to legalize what was already there. We're not taking away from existing space that was utilized for industrial purposes. Second floor space is not ideal for industrial use. It's very difficult to lease for industrial use. Yeah, just basically it's just trying to best utilize the space for where the needs are, and that's with the people that need a place to live, to work in the community. Yeah.
Thank you. At this time, we'll record any additional written submissions to the clerk. Could you please read the names of those who provided written submissions?
Thank you. Written submissions received in support of the appeal, one of which was in the agenda package that was circulated prior to this meeting, from Steve Ashton of Ashton Construction Services, a property owner in Bow Meadows Crescent, and then 4 that were circulated to board just prior to this hearing. Amanda Watson, Take-A-Hike Market, Chris Charchoon, Can Glass, Jane Morrison, All Board Drywall, Jeff Von Rotz, Valbellas. That was it. And then 1 written submission received in opposition to the appeal, which was also circulated to board just prior to this hearing, Nicole Tremblay of Fireweed Glass Studio, and Nicole Tremblay Blown Glass, also a neighbor of the applicant. And I should have said, sorry, all the 4 other written submissions are also on the property in Bow Meadows Crescent.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, I'll ask my fellow board members if we feel it's necessary for a brief recess. For clarification? No? No? Okay. Moving past without the recess being necessary, we'll move to the next portion, which is questions for clarification. So to the board, does any of the board members have questions for clarification for administration? Does the board have any questions for clarification for the applicant? Does the board have any questions for any other person? To the audience, do any of the other person who have presented have any questions for clarification of any other presenter? If yes, please direct your questions through the chair. Does the development officer have any closing comments?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we do. In gaining an understanding of that this was an existing unit, this didn't happen until post-refusal. The board has the application that was filed with with the town in June. It does not speak to an existing apartment unit. We also have no record previously within our system of a previous approval for this type of a use in that unit. And the other thing that I want to highlight for the board's consideration is because of the timing of when we learned of this. So we haven't had the opportunity, either for myself as development officer or the safety codes officer, Mr. Stewart, to go in and inspect the unit and get an assessment of what's in there and how it squares up with respect to safety code compliance. So that's all from us.
Thank you, Mr. Schneider. Does the applicant have any closing comments? Does anyone who made a presentation here today have any closing comments?
Yeah, no, just one comment is that in this process, I mean, to the point about in the application, I did raise that question whether it should go in the application or not. That the current situation, and I was advised that, you know, this is an appropriate time would be to do so in this forum. So I was aware that I was going to be denied prior to applying because the town planning department informed me when I inquired as to the process to apply. I was informed that it had been denied before I even applied. So because of the mid-block location, which wasn't referenced anywhere in the land use bylaw. So I then followed the appeal for a property across the street, 127 Bull Meadows Crescent, and they went through this process, so I followed the same process as they went through, and that appeal was supported, I guess. And there's just 2 properties right in the close proximity that have been approved for employee housing that are in the same or similar circumstances. Yeah.
Thank you. At this time, we will ask, do the persons who have made representations today feel that you have had a fair hearing? Thank you. This hearing is now concluded. As a reminder, the board will meet in a closed session to review the evidence presented, and we'll provide a written decision within 15 days of this hearing. No decision is binding on the board until it issues a written decision. The clerk will provide a notice of the decision to the applicant and post the notice on the town's website. And that concludes the matter for today. Thank you.